Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, the morning after Amanda Nunes' victory over Rhonda Rousey. You know, I think this fight, I've made an earlier video on it, Nunes takes out Rousey with long right hands. Now, I think this fight is really a interesting fight for boxing fans like me, possibly you, right? Rousey makes several mistakes, and I think that we need to pay close attention to them because Nunes' approach in this fight is very much like Deontay Wilder's approach. It's very early in the fight, and Nunes has a certain level of fearlessness, a certain risk-taking mentality, where she's not someone who's going to just look at you and have a very slow early part of the fight. Like in boxing, people like Bernard Hopkins will typically do, right? Nunes is not going to give away any moment of the fight. Like Wilder, especially Wilder earlier in his career, where he was stopping everyone in the first 4 rounds. Nunes is throwing bombs literally seconds into the fight. In other words, she's not hiding that right hand. No, she shows up. She basically is saying to Rousey, here's my plan A. So you're getting heavy, and I mean heavy, right hands from distance early from Nunes. And understand, there's an angle situation going on where it's early in the fight, normally a part of the fight where Rousey would dominate. Many of Rousey's fights have ended in a matter of seconds. And here is Nunes showing up and saying, hey, I'm not here to survive the first round. I'm not even here to concede to you the early part of the first round, which is the part you like. No, I'm here early, throwing my Sunday punch in the very part of the first round in which you thrive, right? Many fighters are just not prepared for it. So Nunes is throwing. She's letting her hands go, so to speak. She's throwing hard, straight, right hands from distance. The fighters aren't even close to each other. She's letting go of right hands. Now, here are the problems that Rousey does that I've seen opponents of Deontay Wilder do. Rousey's standing upright, and she's looking at the right hand. They're facing each other, folks. There's no mystery here, right? Amanda Nunes is an excellent striker. She's striking here. Rousey's looking at her throw the right hand, and Rousey looks to me to be trying to figure out the angle. She wants to block it. But Nunes is throwing it at a funky angle, right? Even though it's a straight right hand, the timing on when she throws it and its trajectory look a little bit hidden, right? So Rousey's looking, can't figure out the angle. The right hand's hitting her in the face, right? Looks like Rousey doesn't know whether to block it this way or to block it that way, right? You can't figure out how straight the right hand is. Same mistake Wilder opponents make. Now, I'm just telling you that defensively blessed fighters, defensively gifted fighters, won't worry about the trajectory. They're not trying to stop the punch on the way in. What they're doing is they're thinking about where the punch is going to land. That's what they block. So, what are your vulnerable areas up top? It's your temple. It's your chin. Right? I'm just telling you, a lot of fighters, right, the guys who know what they're doing against explosive opponents who can hit you with straight punches from long range, where you don't have a lot of time to think the punch is straight, it doesn't have a loop on it, you don't have the time to see some looping punch and then think, oh, punch is on the way. What the defensively blessed do is they'll have a hand up that covers both the temple and the chin. Right? They're not trying to stop the punch on trajectory. They're protecting where the punch is going to land. If you're a real master, you'll notice a guy won't even use his left hand. Why? Because the punch creates a countering opportunity. And it's easier to counter a straight left with a left hook. So masterful fighters will take their other hand and will place it like this. You've seen fighters with a glove laid up against their ear. That protects the temple, that protects the chin. Right? So to me, the aggressiveness of a Nunes, the aggressiveness of a Wilder, in throwing these very hard right hands that require them to lean into the punch, creates a countering opportunity for an opponent who can block the punch on the way in and then has Nunes or Wilder overextended. Right? Their punch blocked. Their hand speed, their leverage neutralized. Right? So then you can come in on this side. Right? Or if you have it totally blocked and you want to throw a right hand, you can throw the right hand. So I personally believe that as dominant as, let's say, a Wilder looks in fights, because that long-range right hand, in fairness to Wilder, he also has a left hook. But when you're unloading heavy right hands that you have to be totally committed to, because those are the right hands that you're throwing with the intention of knocking out the other person, I believe someone who knows to just give themselves body armor, not focus on the angles of Wilder's punch, but just cover their temple and chin, right? Block the punch as it comes in and move in themselves and use Wilder's aggression against him. I believe those punchers, those fighters, would have a shot on Wilder, right? It may surprise some people, but I personally feel someone like Andre Ward, understand Ward is big, right? He fights at light heavyweight. He used to fight at super middleweight, but Ward is a big guy, right? I believe someone like Andre Ward would have a shot on Deontay Wilder, because I believe Ward would be able to get inside on Wilder, and I don't think Wilder's that good inside, right? I don't. Well, let's talk about Rousey. Her mistakes. She looks like she's trying to catch the punch on the way in. Never does, right? Nunes starts pulverizing her face. The other problem is it gets to build momentum on it, because Rousey's standing straight up, isn't she? Right? Rousey's getting hit with shots. She's not even bending at the waist and rolling away from the punch. She doesn't really force Nunes to throw big time left hands. Right? She's always in the trajectory of the right hand up top. And understand, Nunes is clearly targeting her head. Rousey stands upright, doesn't move her head that much, is just getting hit, knocked backwards, right? Doesn't pivot to come forwards. Doesn't show lateral movement. She's always in the line of fire. Now, if you're someplace and you sense that a sniper is shooting at you, I hope you'd have the common sense to not stand upright and stay in the line of fire. right? When you hear gunshots and you feel the sniper's over here, try to take you out from long range, most of us are going to duck low. We're going to move to the side. We're going to try to get out the way. Why isn't Rhonda Rousey doing any of that? Let me say this too. Many people are going to view this as random, right? They're going to think that Amanda Nunes got lucky. How could you say that looking at the Holly Holm fight, right? I know Holly Holm takes her out with a kick, but understand before that kick, Holly Holm is outboxing Rhonda Rousey, right? Outboxing her. Like Nunes, she's doing it from distance. Like in this match, in that match, Rousey has few answers, looks ill-prepared. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure Rousey was very prepared to handle business if they ever got down on the mat. The point, though, is these opponents figured out that if you could keep Rousey standing up, and if you could throw shots from distance, Rousey didn't have the defensive skills to cover her temple and her chin with either this hand or this hand, right? She didn't have the sense of balance to bob and weave and roll away from the punch, right? Her stand-up game, quite frankly, wasn't great. So, as you look at Amanda Nunes, I do think it's fair to compare her to Deontay Wilder. It's the same dynamic. You show up, it's early in the fight, suddenly this opponent is raining down very hard, straight right hands from distance, right? Suddenly the violence in the match has escalated, and the other person isn't close enough for you to counter, right? You're going to have to take steps forward to get to them. The other person, by design, isn't close enough for you to grab, right? They're not trying to get to rounds 3, 4, or 5. If you don't deal with their power now, this fight is over, right? Rhonda Rousey didn't have the skills, in my opinion, to catch the punch, right? Catch the punch, pivot, come inside, change the angle, use lateral movement to not be in the line of fire, right? If she's not in front of Nunes, if she's circling Nunes, Nunes doesn't have the opportunity to get off those straight right hands. As I've said here before, a lot of great defense is doing things to put yourself in a position where the other person doesn't feel comfortable even executing their plan A. Here, Nunes never has to get off her plan A. She's a long-range sniper, right? What they call a striker in MMA. And she has an opponent right in the line of fire, lined up right with her long right hand, right? She never has to get deep in the pocket to allow Rousey to grab her, to try to throw her down to the mat. Anyway, those are my further thoughts. Let's just say Rousey might be a great MMA fighter, but standing up, the boxing part of her MMA isn't great, right? Holly Holm, people might know, was one of the great fighters in boxing for a while, right? Holly Holm was an elite boxer, right? Her background is boxing, not MMA, right? And it showed when she started teeing off on Rhonda Rousey, right? Rousey hasn't made the adjustments necessary to deal with an opponent who's going to keep her standing up and who's going to be throwing power shots from distance. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. The Rousey match is here on YouTube. I believe they have official UFC highlights, which are really the entire fight, which lasted less than a minute. I would encourage you to look at that fight repeatedly and to think about what Rousey could have done, and then to translate that into the pros, to think about what opponents could do against Deontay Wilder. Let me say this too. Some of you have pointed out that Wilder gets inside on Dwyer, right? The opponent before Chris Arreola. What I want you to do is to revisit that film. You're going to notice that while Dwyer is hurt and Wilder gets inside, he's never challenged. To me, I wouldn't call that great inside fighting, right? Wilder's in front of him. He's loading up on hooks and stuff like that. He's not having a hand held. He's not being tugged. He's not being smothered. His opponent is just a sitting duck, right? I thought Rhonda Rousey was a sitting duck here. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.